Good Thursday afternoon. Thanks for joining us on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Chris Sarapsky. New today, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey nominating Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara to another 4-year term. Frey is urging the city council to reappoint him, praising O'Hara's, quote, steady leadership and measurable progress during some of the department's toughest challenges, end quote. Frey credits O'Hara with helping drive down violent crime across nearly every major category, while also pointing to his leadership during the Annunciation shooting and Operation Metro Surge.
With all of those accomplishments, something that I didn't even mention was the number of crises that we have been through. A crisis in the killing of a police officer, Jamal Mitchell, an assassination of the Speaker of our House, a mass shooting at Annunciation, Operation Metro Surge. These were not small endeavors. These were not minor crises. And what we saw is leadership that stood up. We saw Chief Brian O'Hara encountering some of the most difficult moments that our city has ever faced. And he did so with poise.
The nomination can still receive a pushback from the city council. New numbers released this week show MPD spent more than $6 million on overtime in the 4 weeks following the shooting of Renee Good. It comes as council members were already raising concerns after the department went more than $17 million over budget in 2025. Meanwhile, a new gun control measure has been unanimously adopted by the Minneapolis City Council. The Safe Firearms Ordinance seeks to ban assault-style weapons, high-capacity magazines, and ghost guns in the city. In a statement to KARE 11, Mayor Jacob Frey said, quote, I believe every person in Minneapolis deserves to feel safe in their home, their neighborhood, and their community. That's why I'm proud to work alongside the Minneapolis City Council to advance common-sense gun reforms that help prevent violence, protect families, and make our city safer for everyone, end quote. Also today, Ramsey County leaders are urging lawmakers to pass a key gun safety bill before the end of that session. The measure would create and fund a statewide grant program aimed at reducing gun violence and solving more non-fatal shootings. It's part of a larger public safety package already passed in the House. A similar bill is stalled right now in the Senate. New video this afternoon. The Vikings are mourning the loss of Joe Sensor, a former tight end for the team and a radio broadcaster. Sensor played for the team in the late 70s, but his NFL career was cut short by a knee injury. After his playing career, Sensor was the color commentator for the Vikings radio network in the 1993-94 season and from 2001 to 2006. Joe Sensor was 69 years old. This afternoon, the U.S. and Iran appearing to move closer toward an agreement to stop the war. While the proposal would halt the fighting, it does not address several points of contention. NBC's Richard Engel reports.
The U.S. and Iran are both fighting and negotiating, with U.S. Central Command announcing that an American fighter jet fired on an Iranian vessel that was attempting to violate the American-imposed blockade and port in Iran, firing at the ship, hitting it in the rudder. Iran saying that it shot down an American drone. No comment from the Pentagon. President Trump says that the war will soon be over, but he won't commit to a deadline as the world is now waiting for Iran to respond to what is reportedly a 14-point U.S. proposal to draw the conflict to a close. Richard Engel, NBC News, Jerusalem.
This afternoon, the World Health Organization confirming 5 more cases of hantavirus linked to an outbreak on a cruise ship after 3 people died earlier this week. In a press conference today, the agency said more cases of hantavirus are possible, but noted this outbreak is, quote, not a start of a pandemic. Right now, health officials are looking for the passengers who left the ship before the virus was detected. 3 people were evacuated from the ship yesterday, are now being treated in the Netherlands. As for the cruise, the nearly 150 passengers are on their way to the Canary Islands, where they will be examined before being sent home eventually. But people there, including the president, feeling uneasy about the plan.
Taking a vessel that is anchored off the outskirts of the port of Praia in Cape Verde, where it can be attended to and triaged right there, and sailing it 3 days to the Canary Islands to do the same thing there simply makes no sense.
The WHO has confirmed the victims had the Andes strain, which can spread between people but not easily, requiring repeated close contact. Health officials are working around the clock to contain that virus. Well, the wheels are in motion to bring a post office back to Becker. The mayor made the announcement online saying USPS decided to build a new postal facility in the city. That decision comes less than a year since mail service moved from the old post office 8 miles down the highway to Monticello. That caused problems for community members who claimed important letters were getting ripped, returned, or delayed. Our Ian Russell has more on this big announcement.
Where one sees dirt,
I think it'll be a good fit.
Mark Kolbinger sees relief.
Finally.
Because for the first time in months, the end is finally being delivered.
We were able to make a difference, which felt really good because when we started this process, people said, well, good luck, it's not going to happen.
7 months ago, the old Becker post office closed down and moved to Monticello. The owner of the building tore it down to build this new store and didn't renew the lease for the post office. Becker Mayor Mark Kolbinger says they tried to work with the USPS on finding a new location, but the Postal Service says city officials weren't willing to work with them.
I'll be honest, as the months went by, I started thinking maybe this is a fight we're going to lose.
Issues continued to pop up, mail not being delivered or arriving damaged. But Tuesday afternoon, and the news Kolbinger wanted came through.
A huge sense of relief for the people who need that post office here.
The USPS announced they've identified this plot of land for a new Becker post office, complete with the same services as the old one.
I'm ecstatic that our delivery people are coming back, and we'll get back to people having their indoor P.O. box that doesn't freeze shut in Minnesota weather.
Kolbinger says this end of town isn't full of people like the old spot was, but that might actually be a good thing.
We have some ideas about transportation corridors and development that we want to do.
A patch of land full of potential and a chapter in town that they're glad to see wrap up.
Something as simple as your post office, who would have thought that that could bring people across the political spectrum together to really just fight for a common sense solution?
Now again, the USPS has initially identified this piece of land as where they want to put that new post office here in Becker. The mayor tells me, though, there's still some due diligence they have to do to identify if this is actually the correct place to put it. But he says if all goes well, they could be looking at the end of next summer for that new post office here in town. In Becker, I'm Ian Russell, Kare 11 News.
Today, the man accused of spraying a liquid on Congresswoman Ilhan Omar is back in court to change his plea. Last month, Anthony Kazmierczak reached a settlement and agreed to plead guilty. You might remember this video. It's showing Kazmierczak spraying apple cider vinegar on Omar during a town hall meeting. Also this afternoon, a St. Paul police officer is facing more than a dozen burglary charges. Prosecutors say security footage shows Tommy Adams entering a secure side door at the Bloomington Cub Foods 13 times in 1 year. While inside, the cameras were moved away from the store's beauty section, and he later left with multiple items. According to court documents, Adams worked at the Cub store for 15 years before becoming a police officer. In a statement, St. Paul Police Chief Axel Henry said, in part, quote, "Officers, like everyone else, must be accountable for our actions," end quote. Adams has been on paid administrative leave since November. A budget audit turns into an unexpected windfall for Minneapolis public schools. Millions in miscategorized money could soon bring more educators back to the classroom. The new superintendent asked an outside entity to review the district's finances, and it found the school district made errors in categorizing special education funding. District leaders corrected their expense coding and billing issues, leading to more than $10 million in extra special education funding for the current school year, and more than $10 million for next school year. Talk about an error. In a statement, the district says, quote, "While we cannot change past decisions or correct issues in the past, we can recognize the harm that these issues have caused," end quote. The entire school board will see a presentation of the budget, and the first reading will happen later this month. A touching tribute for Fletcher Merkel by Richfield Little League Baseball, the team retiring his number 7 jersey 8 months after he was tragically killed in the Annunciation Church shooting. The team saying that they don't want anyone to wear Fletcher's number again.
For those who love baseball, the Diamond is a sacred place.
We come together to remember, to honor, and to carry him with us.
Fletcher Merkel loved baseball, and the game he gave his all to is now giving back to him.
We're happy that his name continues to be out there and his life is celebrated.
Fletcher was one of the 2 students killed last August in the Annunciation school shooting. His parents,
Fletcher loved every sport.
Jesse and Molly, say he loved Little League in particular because all his friends were on the team.
It was really fun. He was like one of my best friends. And he was really good, to be honest.
Michael Rawaldi says playing just isn't the same this year without his right-hand man.
Still pretty fun to play baseball because it's one of my favorite sports, but it just not as fun.
On Wednesday, Richfield Little League Baseball honored Fletcher the best way they saw fit.
We hope that retiring Fletcher's jersey is really going to help us honor his memory.
Fletcher's number 7, presented to the family, will now no longer be worn by any other player in the league.
Retiring a number is very much a symbol, but it's also a reminder. So every time we look at the number 7, we're going to remember Fletcher and his joy and his love of his teammates and the energy and his enthusiasm.
Fletcher's siblings also kicking off the season with the ceremonial first pitch.
It was an honor and just significant in that he's being remembered and recognized.
Fletcher was just so full of energy and joy.
In Richfield,
We wish he was out there playing.
Joe McCoy, Kare 11 News.
Fletcher's parents say that he was a kid that made sure everyone felt included and was always having fun. That, along with his joy for life, is what they want his legacy to be. Stick with us. We got more news and weather. It's coming up after the break.